Oh, we're not doing a key in. Okay, I think we're just going live. Okay, that's great.
It seems
So
that way.
usually we have like the countdown music. I'm ready for it. I'm getting in the vibe, but we're just gonna go ahead and go and get started. So that's great. So let me go ahead and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is a special event. This is a special edition of Built on AWS, and we are here with Honeycomb.io, enhancing your observability using Honeycomb. We've got all sorts of people chiming in on the chat. So go ahead and tell us where you're joining from, what platform you're on. So good to see all the people joining. Let me do a brief round of introductions. So my name is John Marciniak. I'm a solutions architect at AWS. I've been doing this for about 7 years now. And in a previous life, I did a lot of DevOps kind of roles, SRE when that used to be popular. And then, based in Chicago, Illinois, going back to a little bit of my history, DevOps super important to have observability in the different pipelines as you're deploying apps. Observability is very prominent in well-architected frameworks. Really important to have in a well-rounded, robust app. I am so excited to be joined by Austin Parker. Austin, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you so much. I definitely will. So my name is Austin Parker. I am director of open source at Honeycomb.io, and I do a lot of special projects as well. Part of my role here is to really work and engage with our open source community around projects like OpenTelemetry. If you're familiar with that, I'm part of the OpenTelemetry Governance Committee. I've also written a couple books on the topic. And I've been, before all this, I've worked in sort of the observability space for, gosh, I guess the last like 8 years or so, 8, 9 years. It feels like it's been a while. But before that, I kind of was doing cloud DevOps stuff back when that was new. And before that, telecom. And I've been touching computers for quite a while professionally. Um, and now I'm really passionate about observability and making sure that people actually understand what all of these computers are doing.
Excellent. Yeah, I feel like you mentioned 8 years or something like that. I feel like once you're in the observability space and you've seen some things, the years just kind of fly by, and you can't really.
Yeah, I need observability to understand how long I've been in observability.
There you go. Cool. Yeah. So let's go ahead. I want to first of all introduce Honeycomb AI. Honeycomb is an AWS partner. We'll go ahead and put their partner link in the chat so that you can find them if you're an AWS customer and you want to learn a little bit more about Honeycomb. You can also find Honeycomb at their website, honeycomb.io, and I'm sure we'll delve more into this as we go on, and we'll get these links in the chat as well. But first, a little bit of housekeeping. What are we going to be talking about today? So really excited to talk a little bit more with Austin about Honeycomb Intelligence, Honeycomb services and tools, and then AI-driven observability in action with an extra F at the end. So that was clearly a typo on my part, but that's okay. It's okay to have some typos. We also, as some points of housekeeping, we do have a few of us in the chat. We've got Bill and we've got Ashwin from AWS that are lurking in the chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to put those questions in the chat. And we also have Jack from Honeycomb. So if you have any questions about Honeycomb, we will also be putting in those questions. You can also put those questions in. Jack can answer you, and we can also bring your answers, your questions on the screen as well. We are going to have some polls. So one of the things that we like to do just to kind of make sure that you understand the platform a little bit, we might have some questions and answers, kind of poll action. I always like to get started with a primer poll just to kind of prime the pump a little bit. So I thought, in the essence of what we're talking about today and who we're talking with, we could have a a starter question from this bee factoid I found. How many eyes do bees have? 2, 4, or 5? The answer may surprise you. So go ahead and get those answers in the chat. Meanwhile, let's see, we've got Jib Jab from Boston. Welcome, Jib Jab. Got some other folks. We got Philippines in the house. Thanks for joining, Nick, on Facebook. Got some other folks starting to get some answers here, too. Chris says 2. Jib Jab says 3. What do you think? Austin, do you know this?
I actually don't know. What's the study of bees? Is that like no, that's not ornithoptery. That's
that
birds,
sounds about right.
think.
Okay.
I thought that was birds or
winged
things.
I mean, is it like insects?
Insectology?
Anthropology? No, something like that. So let us know in the chat if you know.
Yeah,
we're getting a lot of different answers rolled in.
Yeah, wow.
We got some 5s, got some 4s. We got some other numbers that aren't on the chat.
LinkedIn
so
really knows
the answer,
their bees.
Ooh, okay. We got some bee experts out here. The answer is actually 5. I didn't know that. So not 2, not 4.
These days, I think they have eyes.
Ooh. I would say, yeah, Honeycomb.io has AI and probably more eyes on your data streams that you could ever possibly need. And that's why Honeycomb is such a great partner, such a great company. I say with a twinkle in my smile. Let's get started. Let's talk a little bit more about Honeycomb.
Well, let's.
Should we intro with maybe, like, can you just give us a brief overview of what Honeycomb is, and
I think that's probably the best way to start, right? So, quite broadly, Honeycomb is a observability platform built for modern cloud native applications. If you're familiar with things like distributed tracing, metrics, log analysis, that's the kind of space that we're playing in. What I think really distinguishes us, we're really distinguish ourselves from 2 ways. One is that Honeycomb is built around this idea of really enabling you as a developer, as an SRE, a DevOps person, whatever. We want to help you really understand your system, and we want to help you understand like what's going on in production. Because if you look at the studies on stuff like this, like the DORA report, one of the things that really kind of separates software teams is, how quickly are you deploying? Like, how long does it take from code on your laptop to go run in prod? And the teams that are the highest performing and the most successful are the teams that are able to ship multiple times a day. To actually accomplish that, you need observability. You need to understand, what's happening in prod, because you don't have the time. If you're going to try to ship multiple times a day, then you can't be sitting around going through and like letting stuff bake for really long times. You need continuous integration, continuous delivery. You need, rock solid observability to really be able to understand what is happening in prod. The second part of that, I think, is that if you have a tool that really helps you understand, what's going on in prod, then it also helps you really understand how your software is performing from the perspective of end users. And I think that it's really easy for us to get caught up in thinking about performance as this very abstract thing, right? You can go and you can write a bunch of tests, you can do synthetic benchmarks, whatever. You can sit and optimize a loop 100 times. But at the end of the day, if I'm pulling up my phone and I'm trying to get concert tickets, or I'm trying to order something in an e-commerce site or whatever, I don't see all of that. All I see is how long does it take from, when I try to get my Taylor Swift concert tickets, like how long does it actually take? Does it actually succeed or not, right? And what we like to do is really help people understand their software from the perspective of their end users. really help engineers understand and speak about their software in the language of the business, so that engineering, you know, PMs, the executives, everyone can kind of speak the same language of what's going on and why it matters.
Yeah.
And that's really, I think, the driving force behind Honeycomb, right? It's not just another, hey, send your metrics and logs and traces or whatever. It's something that really is trying to help you level up as a developer, trying to help you level up as an engineer, software engineer.
Yeah.
Uh,
I really appreciate that. Because there's both ends of the spectrum. I mean, in the beginning, you talked about, rapid release pipelines, all the different things that you can gain from observability there on the deployment
mhm.
side. Both you and I have experience in the DevOps realm, so we know all about those types of things. Uh, but also the other aspect of it, like you mentioned, is how do we understand it from the user perspective, and having a tool that can speak both of those languages,
Mhm.
both the user language, the dev language, and also executive language, business language, if you will.
Yeah, right.
um, Very, very broad, and uh, lots of abilities there. So yeah, sometimes I feel like that's not as forefronted as just, oh, I'm going to inject all of this telemetry into my systems, but let's
Yeah.
also understand the tracing, and understand the user aspect, working backwards from the user.
hmm And one of the ways that we're able to, one of the ways we're able to do this, right, like, is this idea of speed. Because one thing I see a lot when I talk to people with um, one of their biggest observability challenges is, they have so much data and it's so hard to find things. And it doesn't, and you're not helped by the fact that a lot of times, you're dealing with poor performance of your observability stack, right? Like, if you are querying something and it's taking minutes for that query to come back, then you're not able to really have that rapid iterative investigatory loop, right? You're not able to really, you know, you have to make compromises in the telemetry you're sending, or how much you're sampling, or a lot of different levels to try and get data quickly. And
Yeah.
one thing that we've been able to do is, by building on top of AWS and AWS technologies like EKS, like Lambda,
Hmm.
S3, so on and so forth, we've been able to make a extremely high performance database engine, effectively, that is optimized for the needs of like modern cloud native telemetry stacks, right? So it's not
Right.
just metrics, it's not just logs, it's built around an event model. Um, and I can actually show off a little bit of how that works, from a high level, if you want to flip over to me.
Sure. Yeah. Let's go ahead and bring up your screen. In the meantime, I see, before we get started,
Oh
we
yeah.
do have links coming in the chat. So if you want to go ahead and get started with Honeycomb, look for those links. You can go ahead and peruse the site a little bit. We also have a question. I'm not sure if we want to bring this up now, or if this is a natural time to bring up a question from the chat
Well,
regarding.
what was the question?
So let's bring it up. Oh, there we go. Irving, we have Dynatrace. Is there any feature or factors that we should consider to make the move to Honeycomb?
Um, Great question. I think there's a lot of great things that we can do. There's a lot of great things that Dynatrace can do too. Uh, I would encourage you to, hang out and watch, you know, listen to the rest of the stream, because we're going to talk a little bit about, you know, the things that we're focusing on these days. And I would say, broadly, Honeycomb is solving the same problems. We're in the same problem space as the Dynatrace or Datadog or whoever. And all of these tools have different strengths and weaknesses. Um, One thing that I think is really nice, with my open source hat on,
Yeah.
is that now, with technologies like OpenTelemetry, which we
Yeah.
are, a huge fan of, and we contribute a lot to it. Like I said, I've been working on OpenTelemetry since before it was OpenTelemetry, and we employ several full-time engineers who, contribute back to the project as well. And for that matter, so does Dynatrace, right? But if you're using OpenTelemetry, you don't. and you want to try out Honeycomb, it's really just a question of like, hey, take your data and point it over to Honeycomb, right? I think the thing that you as a end user or as a as an engineer, as an SRE, whoever, the thing to
Hmm.
kind of focus on is leveraging stuff like OpenTelemetry to allow you to be vendor agnostic, so you can choose the best tool for your needs, because that might change over time, right? Like your needs will evolve. Um, and being able to build on top of OTel means that as your needs evolve, you aren't, kind of trapped behind one single vendor. You can just try out something else.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely something I was going to bring up. Is if you're already utilizing telemetry, then the agnostic viewpoints of that is really simple, and
Mhm.
you're able to. It's already such a well loved and cared for standard that has a lot of flexibility. So uh,
Yeah.
it enables you to try a lot of different platforms out and see the different aspects of that. But I digress. This is a really interesting looking architecture.
Yeah.
I'd love to dive in a little bit more.
Yeah. So I don't want to do like a super deep dive in here. But I want to just kind of like walk, let's talk about like the journey of your data, of the data flow into Honeycomb. So, you know, everything goes in through our API in one way or the other, and then we write it all into Kafka, and then we stream it. As you query for data, it can go fetch it from Kafka. It can go fetch it from S3. And what we do that I think is really unique is that we have kind of a fairly straightforward architecture in terms of fan out and fan in. But because we're able to back all this by Lambda, you know, most queries on Honeycomb execute in milliseconds, right? Like even over millions and millions and millions of events. And it's one of the things that we really keep track of. One of our SLOs is in one of our SLOs is how long does it take for a byte to hit this load balancer before it can
Hmm.
actually be queried? And I think that's less than 5 milliseconds,
Yeah,
is our SLO there, something
is that
along those lines.
is that time to first byte? Is that like a
Basically, yeah, it's like
yeah?
it's almost time to, it's like time to first byte, but like once something hits the LB, how long does it take before it kind of like gets into Kafka and it can be picked up
Right.
by a query? So and that again, like we try to keep that in like the millisecond range. But also, how long does kind of the par time on fetching from S3, all this other stuff. And like I said, we try to keep that in the tens to hundreds of milliseconds. Um, and a lot of this is possible because of AWS, right? Like with Lambda, we're able to instantly scale, to whatever our customers demand. And I'd have to look at the exact numbers, but we process somewhere on the order of like millions and millions of events per second per customer. Um, so I think our daily throughput is something. I don't know if it's trillions, but it's certainly hundreds of billions of events per day.
Hmm.
Um, and AWS keeps up with that, no problem.
Sure.
And I think one of the cool things about it is it's a fairly simple, it's the data flow at least is fairly straightforward. Data comes in through the load balancer, it's Kafka, gets written out into S3 if it doesn't get queried in time. If it is, it's on Kafka for long enough to kind of be queried and evaluated for SLO or triggers, and then it gets written to S3 where it stays until it's no longer needed. We have a few other, this is showing some of the service interactions. We're using things like Redis. We're using RDS for MySQL.
Hmm.
We can accept data from other AWS services over like Kinesis streams, um, and we're writing Parquet back to S3. But one thing I wanted to kind of point out is the eagle-eyed among you might notice that this thing that I am showing you is a web page. This is a Claude desktop artifact.
Ooh.
And you might have noticed this little chat window over here. So what I did is earlier before we got on this, I went and asked Claude, like, hey, I'd like you to make an artifact that demonstrates our prod architecture based on our actual data. And what you see over here is a bunch of tool calls.
Wow, look at that. This is so cool. I'm going to geek out over this.
So what this is, what's happening here is one of the things we've recently released into public beta about a month and a half ago, Honeycomb MCP as part of our Honeycomb Intelligence suite. And Honeycomb Intelligence is really where we're bundling a lot of things around AI and how agentic and generative AI can really be used to accelerate your adoption of observability, can really be used to integrate observability into really interesting parts of your workflow. A lot of other stuff other than just MCP.
Mm-hmm.
And some of this, we'll talk more about it later, but we actually have a lot of like really cool announcements coming up in about 2 weeks. You'll learn more about how to sign up for the info on those later. But MCP basically gives, agentic AI or other AI tools the ability to interact with Honeycomb in a similar way as a person would. And you remember what I said earlier, really the goal of Honeycomb is to really kind of have these investigatory loops. We wanted to bring that to the AI through MCP. So we can do things like we have a tool called Get Service Map, and it is able to look at, there's a feature in our UI called service maps,
Mm-hmm.
which shows you the connection of your services to the other. So we have a tool that will get that same data, but and this is one of the interesting things about building these MCP tools is you have to think about like, well, how do you give that data to the AI? Because you could just send it a picture, right? But we found that using Mermaid, if you're familiar with Mermaid, it's a way
Yep.
it's a textual way to describe graphs and other things. So
It's
we actually split.
basically like Mermaid, for those that don't know, is basically what you see on the right-hand side with the architecture diagram,
Yeah,
right?
this is basically a Mermaid graph. So
Yeah.
what we're able to do is when an AI tool or Claude or whatever agent you're using calls get service map, we're sending back that service map in Mermaid format, and it's able to look at this and sort of interpret that and understand the connections between services and how many requests they have based on that textual representation, right? We're also able to do things like, one of the other things it's doing is it's able to say like, okay, well, let me just like run queries, find queries and look at like what are other people doing. It's able to kind of query, what Claude did is it did all these queries, it looked at all this data, and then it built this architecture based on the actual underlying, it tried to go through Google Drive and couldn't, but it built this diagram, the system map, out of the actual data in Honeycomb about how Honeycomb works.
Yeah.
And I think that is like, we can swap back off screen share. I think that's one of the cooler things about like the way about AI right now and about things like MCP is it lets
Yeah.
us combine data and it lets us combine things in just really interesting ways, and gives you as like an end user the ability to kind of like build really cool workflows, do really neat stuff that before would have been challenging to do.
Yeah, totally. And you think about it like before these agentic workflows, all of these different tools that are available now, LLMs,
Mhm.
it was mainly an API kind of focused interaction where you had that rigid structure, right? Where you needed to conform to. One of the beautiful things about MCP servers is that it doesn't really matter the structure. It can give you back all of the different information in the most appropriate format, whether it's text or maybe a JSON blob or
Right.
code, um, and be able to do that in a cost-effective way, right? Just utilizing the information that you need, and maybe not all of this extra like JSON fluff in the API
Yeah.
response that you're not using.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what I've been working on our MCP server for about since March, I guess, of this year. So we turned it around pretty quickly. Um, and one of the things that, one of the questions that we kind of asked ourselves as we were building it and before we built it is, well, why build a hosted version, right? Why not just give you something that you run locally that connects to our public API? And the thing that we really found as we were using it is there's a lot, like it's almost like UI design, right? Like,
Hmm.
and I think that's actually a way I really like talking about MCP right now. Is it's almost, you can, if you think about the browser and you think about HTML as sort of a presentation layer for data, you think about web apps or like ways to present data to humans. MCP is really almost like the presentation layer for the LLM. I mean, yes, it's transport, but the transport is just, it's just JSON, RPC back and forth. But
Hmm.
really, what you get out of MCP is a way for an AI to get data in a format that is tailored to the AI.
Yeah.
Um, and that unlocks a lot of opportunities, I think, for people building these sort of MCP servers, but also for users that are integrating them, because it means that a good example is, instead of sending back JSON, most of the time from our MCP server, we send back either CSV. I guess we just send back comma separated
Yep.
rows for things that are tabular. But if you run a query, you know, and I'll show you this here in a few minutes, but like you run a query and then you look at it in Honeycomb and you see a line graph, right? You see a 2D like plot. What we found is the most efficient way to send that to an LLM is actually to draw that same plot as in ASCII art.
Yeah.
So, and it can see, but it can interpret the line art, the 2D ASCII art line graph,
Yeah.
and it's significantly fewer tokens than sending it every point, right? Because that's like right now, if you were to go, I think most MCP servers for observability tools, they'll send back the JSON. They'll send back like, here's every point.
Yeah.
Um,
And then
and
there's
it can
a lot
certainly,
of math involved in,
there's
getting
a
the,
lot of math. It can
yeah.
misinterpret the numbers. Um, and it's extremely inefficient in terms of like token usage,
Yeah.
because if you think about JSON data especially, there's a lot of white space, there's a lot of just repeating fields over and over
Hmm.
and over and over. So if you instead you send back the most efficient thing, that also, and this is the other thing about it, is I find that it's good to make sure that whatever data you send back is also interpretable by a human, because I can show you, the 2D line graph, and you can look at it and kind of compare it to what's in the UI and verify
Yep.
for yourself that it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And that helps, I think, build trust between people and sort of these agentic tools. Because one of the things that I've seen pretty commonly is that it can be hard to trust AI, right? It can be really challenging. People can either trust it too much,
Yeah.
or they can like not trust it enough. And so having that ability to really kind of side by side look at two things and say like, yes, it's the same graph, it's the same data,
Yeah.
gives you, I think, more ability to kind of trust the conclusions of the AI, and building that trust and building that rapport between AI, human in the loop AI systems and
Sure.
everyone else turns out to be really important in making you successful with agentic AI. So yeah.
I was going to say, I think like one of kind of piggybacking on what you're saying, with the trust and hallucinations and things like that. Now, of course, in chatbots and things like that, traceability is becoming really important. They want to see the stream of, how the LLM got to that kind of
Hmm.
output. And then what you were saying about being able to see in like the ASCII, how things are mapping up, and it's speaking machine code, so to say, and also humans can also understand it as well.
Yeah.
What kind of trace is that like the traceability that's offered in Honeycomb Intelligence? Is there deeper dives into traceability so you can ensure that when you're utilizing the MCP server, you're getting the right data points from the right bucket of information?
Yeah. So one thing, with Honeycomb Intelligence, it's really more about like putting agentic AI and putting AI in the loop of how you're investigating these problems and making sure that it connects up. I think to what you're talking about with traceability and understanding what your agents are doing, that's just something that we do kind of on our own, right? Like we didn't have to come in and say like, oh, it turns out tracing is important for AI apps. It's like, we've been doing tracing for a while, so you understand what your apps are doing in prod anyway. And
Yeah, makes
um,
sense. That's like a
I
core
think
value, like
it's
a
a yeah,
core
it's a core part of the
competency.
product, right?
Yeah.
And what we found is, if you're familiar with Intercom, they're one of our customers, and they recently launched an AI product, an AI support agent, I believe, called Finn,
Hmm.
I think. And they've actually done like they built that on top of Honeycomb for observability, and it's been really impactful for them. And a lot of it, and one of the reasons I think they were so successful with it is because they already knew, they were already sort of bought into the idea of like being able to trace what the applications are doing and understanding what your apps are doing, right? And so as they were building their new thing, they kind of had that foundation. What's I think is really fortunate for a lot of people that are coming into Gen AI apps or agentic AI apps right now is that Open Telemetry really has a lot of support for agentic AI and AI apps out of the box, right? So you get a lot of data. You can get a lot of data for free
Hmm.
with your various frameworks. If you're using frameworks like LangChain or LangSmith, or if you're using things like strands agents,
Yeah.
right? Like all of these frameworks have OTel built in. And really, you just need to be able to point that data to somewhere like Honeycomb in order to understand what the agent is doing, understanding how it got to that decision,
Yep.
understanding how, where is it off talking to it, all these things. So that's something that we've always been really good at. And now that more people are building with AI, um, they're really seeing that value as well, right?
Makes sense. Makes sense. I think I'm really excited to start seeing, a little bit more about Honeycomb as like the platform.
Yeah.
I think that we have some demos lined up. I think in the meantime, while you're getting your screen ready and everything, we do have some questions that came in the chat. This one necessarily isn't about Honeycomb. It's about AWS certifications. I will briefly go ahead and throw this one up on the screen, and we'll get this link in the chat. All all different types of certification exams. Which AWS certification is most valuable for data engineers? So we've got foundational exams, associate exams. We do have a data associate engineer that I would maybe recommend starting off at that. And of course, there's going to be a lot of observability type of metrics and questions in that exam. So small little plug for that. And then I think Jaya also had another question about AI/ML with data engineering workflows, which we can maybe touch in a little bit because I really want to see this demo.
Yeah.
Mind if I bring up your screen?
Let me. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, we live.
Yep.
So I think the best way to really understand Honeycomb is kind of practically. And like many people, maybe on this call, I've been really excited about vibe coding and just using agentic AI for code generation. And so before we start, I actually want this to be a little interactive. So I want people to, as I go through this little web app I built, I want people to make suggestions for features that we should add. And then
Yeah.
we're going to use Kiro um, to vibe code some features and add observability using Honeycomb. So what I did is I created this very, very basic virtual pet app. So if anyone is familiar with Neopets, similar idea. Doesn't do a ton of stuff, but this is a SvelteKit application running some open source component libraries, and it's using Bedrock with an image generation model. I think this is Amazon's Titan image gen model,
Cool.
to kind of create pets for you. So you can, right now, you can feed them. Honeycomb enjoyed the meal.
Nice.
Great. And there's a very basic sort of username. So I'm going to create,
I was going to say
create
that that pet looks like something that is probably on my 7-year-old's Christmas list.
probably. So let's make a new pet real quick. Let's adopt. I just signed up, so let's make a new pet. What species we thinking?
Why isn't a bee on this list?
That's
But
that would be a good feature to add. Well,
there we
I add
go.
it.
Maybe
Yeah,
maybe in a bit. But I guess closest thing to a bee would probably be a bird or a dragon. And dragons, I think, are
dragons are cooler. Um, we'll call our dragon. We'll just call our dragon Amazon. Good name, right?
there we go.
So this is going to go ahead and send a prompt over to through Bedrock and to our image gen model, and it is going to upload. It's going to create the image. It's going to upload it to S3, and now we can see Amazon.
It's so cool.
Amazon needs a little food. Enjoyed the meal. Great. And so we can see these are all of the pets that have been created. I have one pet. I can adopt more pets. I can log out. It doesn't do a ton of stuff. Now, I've obviously been using this application, and one thing, and this is I want to show SvelteKit specifically because they very recently announced built-in OpenTelemetry integration with Svelte. And so if I go to my Honeycomb account, you can see that over the past few minutes, I suddenly have all these traces, spans, no errors, thankfully, span duration. So I didn't have to really add any instrumentation to this. I just turned it on in Svelte with a couple quick config options and pointed it at Honeycomb, and now I'm able to get things like how many, if I wanted to say group by HTTP route, I can see get and post. I can see all of the different operations that are happening. If I wanted to group by, I don't know if there's there's no user attribute on that. Or group by name, I can see 11 gets to 1 post. Here's my various 10 minutes, we can see a little more. Yeah,
Sure.
so you can see here all the various calls that were being made. If I want to dig into one of these,
So this is
and
looking at the backend application and all of the different AWS
yeah,
services.
right. So in this case, like this was a GET request, and you see these SvelteKit.handle.root. This is tracing instrumentation that is being created by SvelteKit for me. I didn't have to go in and add any of this stuff. And here you see where this is actually getting virtual pets user. So this is looking at when I'm trying to log in. It's looking at the. I'd have to trace this back to exactly where it is in the code. But this was loading data, talking to DynamoDB, get virtual pets users, update item. So we can see, these various AWS attributes over here. We can see what was the request ID, what was it doing. And this is, again, from OpenTelemetry, right? So there's a instrumentation library in OpenTelemetry called Instrumentation AWS SDK. Again, I turn that on, and now I get to see, all of my DynamoDB things on here. If I wanted to go back and say, I'm already grouping by name. I got rid of that. I can see S3 put object. I can see Bedrock runtime invoke model. So let's say I'm building something with AI, and I'm using Bedrock behind this. I can actually see, how long is it taking to talk to the AI, to the language model, right? In this case, I can see, this entire call took 10 seconds. Most of that was spent talking to Bedrock.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Takes a minute to generate a picture. And then we put that into S3 and so on and so on and so forth. but that's kind of, the high level, right? I could take this, and if I wanted to go and I wanted to do other things, if I wanted to make, you know, alerts on this, if I wanted to create an SLO on, something or another, I could. But what's cool, I think, is that I'm also able to do all of that through that MCP server that I was just talking about, right?
Ooh, yeah.
So if
So
I go, yeah,
this is Kiro,
go on.
right?
Yeah, so this is Kiro. This is, if people aren't familiar with Kiro, this is, gosh, this came out what, like a month ago?
Yeah.
I think it's in public preview. Can people actually download this now? I thought it might be
Yeah,
full.
so there was some unprecedented demand for Kiro when we launched it. It was right before the AWS New York Summit in July.
Mm-hmm.
So just temporarily, I took your screen off. I put mine back on just to see the Kiro website.
Okay.
So if you wanna take a look at it, it's Kiro.dev. It's an IDE for developers, agentic focused IDE. So not only just vibe coding, not only just Amazon Q, but also spec-driven development, which I've been playing around with. Definitely a different way to utilize AI and all of these agents in writing, more productive, proper applications through specs, right? So there's a wait list right now, so you can go to Kiro and join that wait list. Without further ado, I'll send it back over to you, Austin, to kind of get into um, the app that you built here.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm asking Kiro to look at the actual telemetry data, the observability data, because again, most of this is things that we didn't really add in, right? So I'm telling it, hey, go look at that same data I was just looking at in Honeycomb, and tell me what's missing, right? Because there's things that I probably might care about. Let me actually make this a little wider. And you can see that it's going, Kiro, I'm using Claude Sonnet for my model. It's able to go and call our MCP server in order to run various queries. So in this case, it was looking for, Bedrock or image generation. Here's what, I was mentioning earlier, the ASCII art graphs. So here's an example of the ASCII art
Ooh,
graphs,
yeah,
literally just ASCII art graphs.
yeah.
One thing that's interesting, that doesn't have a series on it. Yeah. And I would need to ask for something that actually had like upsy downsy. But like one thing that's actually an interesting, this just changed yesterday. It was just when I pushed this. But you notice that there's no labels on the y-axis.
On the left hand side.
Yeah, but they're right here.
Oh, okay.
So we put the range up in the top, and it gives us more room for the actual graph. And LLMs seem to be pretty good at figuring out like what the actual values would map, like relative to that, which is interesting.
Yeah.
One other thing. Oh, go on.
No, I was just so right now, just so that folks are kind of maybe following along. We're actually
Mhm.
calling the MCP server for Honeycomb, right, within
Yeah,
Kiro. Yeah.
yeah,
So we wired
works
that up.
works in anything.
Yeah. So did you use like the Kiro MCP agent feature? Okay, there it is.
Um,
Cool.
yeah, right down there, Honeycomb. So I also have a
Nice.
couple of other MCP servers hooked up to this.
Yep.
Playwright, so for browser automation, Context 7 for documentation, Fetch. I have some steering documents set up
Yep.
to help keep Kiro, on focus.
Sure.
I have done some of this. I vibe coded this one, but I have done the spec-driven stuff. The spec-driven stuff is pretty cool. And I think it's a really good pattern for people. In this case, I didn't use it, but
Cool. Yeah. So,
so
anyways,
yeah.
with your session that you have there, that's it's really cool to see that you can pull in those ASCII graphs within
Hmm.
the conversation. So that's what I wanted to round back to.
Yeah. So one thing that I think is super interesting here is I asked it, I said, hey, I want you to go look at the telemetry and then also look at the conventions for Gen AI telemetry and see what's missing, right? Because and it was able to use the fetch tool to go and get our documentation from the OpenTelemetry website
Mm.
and see what data is in Honeycomb right now and what's missing. And it kind of gave me this little report. And
Yeah.
so it was able to, so now it went through and it edited these files. I can see, what it's done. And now I can even say if I want to, could you run, do some image generation, request through Playwright, then check Honeycomb to make sure your changes work. And now Kira will go off and fire up Chrome through Playwright, and it
Hmm.
should start. You see, no hands. It's using
Yeah.
Playwright to create an account. I this is like one of my favorite like stupid AI tricks is
Yeah.
using Playwright. I think it's absolutely essential just being able to do browser automation. Um, it makes like things like this so pretty straightforward
Yeah. Yeah. I've
where you
tried.
can, yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I've tried browser automation in the past, and like it is. It's a skill that you have to develop. It's a muscle that you have to work out in order to like
Hmm.
really get value out of it. But I feel like there's a lot of uh, you got to spend some time banging your head against the wall before you really get good at it enough to be productive.
Yeah, and I actually think one fun like side benefit I think of AI, or agentic AI especially, is that you can give if you have a web app and you're trying to improve unit testing or component testing or whatever, like you can just kind of give the AI Playwright and have it go through and like explore the app and like come up with scenarios and like workflows and stuff. Um, and then have it write those as like Playwright tests in JS. And it's a good way to like just get more test coverage for your application and be more confident about things.
Yeah,
Because
super cool.
I, yeah, one of the things that I think does really matter a lot with AI is just having really good tests. So we can see that Hero is going and making a bunch of stuff. And so it created some demos, and it's looking for the new fields that it added, and it sees that indeed they are present.
Nice.
And yeah, so it's able to kind of go and look at all of them. And you can also see
Nice.
like one of the things that we've added now, like now we see the prompt, right? Like
Ooh,
now
nice.
we
Yeah, I
can
see that.
see all this stuff. And it now maybe someone's like, oh, it's really hard to tell what's in that. We also make sure that you can go and pull this query back out, right? So we can, I'm just gonna take the URL, hop over into Ryan.
Okay, cool. So it's a bespoke URL just to get to that
Right,
exact query.
right. So it gives you the query back that it ran. I'll run it again to see. And there's other things that, one of the nice things is now that I have this in here, I could go and I could change like how I want to visualize it. So I could turn it into bar charts. I could turn it into pie charts, stacked area, big numbers.
Yeah.
Um, and I think this is kind of one of the real points. I think this drives a lot of our thinking around AI tooling is sort of this loop of, um, yes, you have the AI buddy off in the corner doing stuff for you, but you should always be able to work alongside it, and you should be able to kind of get back to where if the AI finds something, you should be able to kind of look at that in the UI too, right? We want to make sure that the AI has the same access to data and the same data that you have, so that you can, so that you're always in the loop. And I think that helps build trust between users and AI. But also it really helps, I think, people understand better. One of the, I think, like many companies, you know, we're really encouraging people internally, especially engineers and really everybody, to think about, how are you using AI? How can AI help you be more productive?
Yeah.
And one of the things that a lot of our engineers are saying is like, it's really good at helping me sort of like being able to ask questions, right? Being able to ask questions about code, being able to ask questions about my system.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is really critical. Um, because if you think about it, like, this is a fairly straightforward application. Most people probably don't have web apps that are, people probably have web apps a little more complicated than virtual pets, right?
Yeah.
Um, oh, that's a cool bird.
Yeah, that is a pretty cool bird. These should be like, are NFTs still a thing? Because these could,
They look like them, don't they?
yeah,
Yeah, I know. I think Gen AI is kind of like ruined NFTs, hasn't it? Because now
yeah,
everyone can make their own JPEGs.
it's
But
true.
most people's applications are more complicated than this, right? And you need to be, and I think really understanding what's happening. You get a ticket or you get paged about something that isn't what you normally work on. You need to be able to look at the code, look what's happening in prod, and really kind of bring all those insights together. And I think that is one of the things that our MCP server especially really, really helps with, right? Because so many people are spending more and more time in tools like Cursor,
Yeah,
things like Cloud Code, Hero, right? And being able to not have to kind of page back over and go, and stop what you're doing, go into a UI and write a bunch of queries or whatever.
yeah,
Like, just having that all kind of natively in the same spot is a great way to quickly get answers and really understand what's going on.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, there's a lot of different personas, right? Like
mhm,
and thinking back to DevOps, SRE type folks implementing observability, like observability MCP into a QC pipeline, like a quality driven pipeline to make sure deployments are still up to spec and everything is deployed smoothly.
mhm.
And it's really utilizing an MCP server with your let me try again, observability platform like Honeycomb did,
Mhm.
uh, just opens doors for the ability to. It's like a Swiss Army knife of different possibilities.
Yeah, it really is. And I think, there's, beyond what I've shown here, like I've personally experimented with this. Gen AI and the MCP is really good at doing things like migrating to OpenTelemetry. If you have, legacy stats D or just like plain old unstructured logs, you can tell it, hey, go turn this into OTel traces, right? Turn it into spans, update these for me. Um, you can have it kind of level up your observability, and it does much better by being able to look at like what's actually, in prod right now, what is actually happening. It can do a lot of things for you that previously may have been, because I think some of this stuff is like, I don't think AI should do all the fun parts of coding. But I think like nobody likes doing telemetry migrations, right? Like nobody really wants to go and like look at the document and be like, are we using all these exact attributes in the right way? Like that's a good thing for AI to do.
Yeah.
And it lets you kind of focus on the fun things, the design.
Yep. Totally.
So I, we could, if we had more time, we could talk a lot more about this, but I think we are actually kind of coming close to it. So
We
I'm
are.
gonna go
We
ahead
are.
and switch back if you want to take my
Yep.
screen down.
I got your screen down. I do
All
want to
right.
bring up mine once more and talk a little bit more about some of the things that you've got coming up. I know that there's some really interesting things on the roadmap. I know that you have like a customer conference coming up. So I think we're getting those links in the chat, and I've got those links here to kind of
Yeah.
show off as
Yeah,
well.
the two big things. Well, first, if anyone any of the stuff that I was showing today in Honeycomb with MCP, that's all available. That's available to our free accounts as well. So if you
Yep.
go to our website, or click one of the links, definitely click one of the links that is in the chat. You can sign up and
Yeah.
start for free. It's free forever. Our MCP works just fine. So if you want to try this out, we also have you just had it up there a second
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah. So I
But
was
if
just
you
going to show,
go,
like, I created an account, and it was super
Mhm.
easy. I just used my Google, login
Yeah,
for, and
sign in
then
with Google.
it's ready to accept data. And then there's all these
Yeah,
different types of getting started guides. There's also the
yeah.
sandbox tour, right?
Yes, I love the sandbox. So if you it's on the webpage, but you can go through and we
Yep.
have this kind of interactive scenario where you can go through these sort of like guided investigations, right? Where we go a little more in depth in um some things. So you can see, especially like our newer front end observability. So if you have a micro web framework or micro web front end, we can show you things like your LCP, your core web vitals, your LCP, your INP. We can break things down by errors, show you largest assets, slow, request by endpoint. So again, we're trying to really provide a lot of those very conventional views and interactions that you might experience or you'll be looking for in sort of this general platform. And we're able to do that again thanks to you know being built on AWS and having sort of this really very powerful platform that we can build on.
Yep.
If you want to learn more about what we're doing with AI, then you got to check out Honeycomb's Ollie Day in San Francisco. That's going to be, you can sign up for our AI week, AI week is happening during the same time as
Okay.
Observability Day San
Okay.
Francisco. Yeah.
So there's two.
So this
There's
is,
AI
it's,
week.
yeah, it's kind of the Ollie Day is about stuff that we talk about. It's an AI, it's an AI, all AI, all
Yeah.
AI. Uh, It's mostly going to be talking about AI though, because we are announcing like three really cool launches that week. Spoiler, one of them is going to be about MCP, but we have a few other things that you'll really want to check out. So you can sign up on those links for more information about that. And if you happen to be in or near the San Francisco Bay Area, um, you can register to attend Observability Day San Francisco, and you can meet me in person
There we
because I'll
go.
be there.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Cool.
I think
So
that's everything I was supposed to shout out.
I think so. I'm looking at the list here. I think we're good.
Okay.
I think we're close to time here. So unfortunately, this hour flew by. It was so cool to see how you can integrate observability with Honeycomb into things like agentic workflows, MCP servers. I think it really is going to define the future for how we do observability. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank our chat Smees for dropping all those links. And most of all, I want to thank you, Austin. Thanks so much for your time today.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. This was super fun. I love showing this stuff off. I love talking about observability. So we'll have to do it again sometime.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, everyone. Talk soon.